Hello everyone, welcome to the economics class. I'm Sandeep Kumar from Shivjyoti Educational Group Kota. Today I'm going to start chapter number 3 of Indian economic development, economic reforms since 1991 and new economic policy. So at first I'll let you know the exact meaning of economic reforms. So economic reforms is defined as the changes introduced by the government to bring an improvement in the economy of a country through various reforms and policies. Definitely, economic reform is a type of change in the strategy and the policies of the economy for the growth and development of the economy. In 1991, the Government of India initiated a series of economic reforms to pull the economy out of the crisis of 90s. These reforms came to be known as new economic policy. Basically, before 90s, in the previous chapters we discussed about the Indian economic problems, that there were various problems in the agriculture sector, industrial sector and foreign trade problem. Due to these all the issues, India had to take and initiate in the year 1991 for the improvement and the growth in all these three sectors so that India can achieve better. India was having basically so many crises in the field of foreign trade, industrialization, agriculture and all. So India wanted to get rid of all these things. So we initiated economic reforms in the year 1991. These economic reforms can be known as new economic policy as well. So there were basically three components of this reform. The first is liberalization, second is privatization, and third one is globalization. In short form, we can say LPG. This LPG is termed as new economic policy or NEP in short. So here first of all we will discuss that what was the need for the NEP or new economic policy or economic reforms in India. So it can be classified into 3 to 4 parts. The first we are going to start as high fiscal deficit. Definitely there was high fiscal deficit, but what is meant by fiscal deficit? So it refers to borrowings by the government on account of the excess of its expenditures over revenue during a year. Means in a financial year, India was having excess of expenditures but lesser the revenue receipts. There was no source of more income because we were rapidly importing the goods and services from other countries. Import substitution we find out, but due to this sake only, India had to stop its foreign exchange. And due to this thing only, India was suffering from lots of the borrowings from other countries. So it was a high fiscal deficit that India was having, greater the expenditures but lesser the supply. And basically it indicates poor financial health of the economy. So fiscal deficit was estimated to be 5.4% of GDP in 1981-82 and it shot up to 8.4% of GDP in 1990-91. It almost led to a debt trap for the government. So that is why NEP became essential to restore fiscal deficit or fiscal discipline. Second problem was of BOP crisis. This is balance of payment crisis. BOP crisis relates to BOP deficit, means this is the difference between total receipts and total payments of a country on account of its economic transactions with rest of the world. As we know that from the early back, India was doing foreign trade with other countries. Due to excess or higher imports, payments were higher as well, and lesser exports caused lesser receipts to the India. So again there was a crisis or imbalancing between receipts and payments, which was a main reason for the economic reform, so that India can increase its exports to the other countries, so that India can increase its receipts as well, so that India will be able to bear its expenditures. Next point we have is poor performance of PSUs. Here the term PSUs refers to public sector undertakings. In the previous chapter we discussed about the economic systems, in which I told you about the three economic systems. The first was capitalist economic system, second socialist economic system, and third was mixed economic system. And even I told you that India adopted mixed economic system after the independence, in which there was a involvement of socialist economic system and capitalist economic system as well. So definitely there will be equally or partly, we can say, the contribution was there of socialist economic system, means there was involvement of the public sector undertakings also. But due to excess investments, we can say, or Indian government was not capable to adjust all the things at the time, there was the weaker or the poor results of the public sector undertakings or the social sector, because government was not much able for more and more investments, providing the raw material to the industries, and even there was not sufficient return from the public sector undertakings also. So that is why these were the basic reasons why we had to initiate or introduce economic reforms in our country. So these were the basic reasons. Now let's come to the elements of NEP. Basically there are three elements or three components, as I told you previously. The first one is liberalization, second is privatization, and third one is globalization. In short, we can say LPG. So first of all, we will discuss about liberalization. Liberalization of the economy means free down of the producing units from direct or physical controls imposed by the government. Basically, the word liberalization refers to the freedom. India wanted some of the freedom for the production sector, for the production of goods or services, for the establishment of industries, for the investment in different sectors. As government was having a good hold in our country or on the economy, but due to that strict hold, India lagged behind it in so many things. For example, prior to 1991, government had imposed several types of controls on private enterprises in the domestic economy. These included industrial licensing system, price control or financial control on goods, import license, foreign exchange control, restriction on investment by big business houses, etc. So these all were the reasons through which India was not much able to increase the funds, reserves, treasures of the country. Because the basic reason was that, such as I can take an example of industrial licensing system. What is this industrial licensing system? In the early back before 1991, if any of the person from the private sector, we can say, or we can take an example of any entrepreneur, if there is an entrepreneur who wants to start its entrepreneurship, he wants to do investment in the economy for the entrepreneurship, he will have to take the permission license from the government. Now the thing is that he is having the amount for the investment, but he is not able or capable for getting the license from the government. He will not be able to start his entrepreneurship. Due to this sake only, this was a drawback of the economy. By making or by summing up such kind of micro levels of entrepreneurs, at the macro level it spread its bad impacts or adverse effects, because it reduced GDP of the country, employment level of the country, income receipts, taxation to the government. These all combinedly reduced the growth of the country at that time. So now this was the time in the year 1991 to make all these things liberal, so that each and every creature of the economy can take equal participation for the growth and the development of the Indian economy. Basically, there were four sectors those who got the huge benefits from the liberalization. The first among all them is industrial sector reform. As in the previous videos also, I have told you that by stabilizing or by the establishment of any of the industry, we can increase the GDP, we can increase employment level in the country, living standard of the people, income receipts, taxations to the government, production of goods and services, and so many other things. So, India was in the need for the establishment of new industries at the rapid growth. So, by the liberalization, as they removed licensing policy for the industrial sector, so it got a huge benefit. So first of all, there was a big benefit of the abolition of industrial licensing. In the July 1991, a new industrial policy was announced. It abolished the requirement of licensing in the defense equipments, industrial explosives, and dangerous chemicals. So the people, those who were more interested for such kind of industry, for establishing or investing in such kind of industries, the people got freedom for starting such kind of industries without getting licenses. Second thing was expansion of private sector. As we can say, there was a contraction of public sector now onwards. In the previous topic I told you about poor performance of PSU, public sector undertaking. If public sector is not able to manage all those things, so definitely there will be expansion of private sector. It will be privatized, means the shares of the public sector that will be sold in the hands of private sector, so that the people can easily manage the things. Here I will give you an example of electricity board of our quota. Here early back there was a control of Jaipur Vidyut Nigam Limited, but now it has been given to KEDL. That is only a contractual thing, no? It is a contract of 10 years. But earlier it was in the hands of public sector. Public sector was not much able to manage all those things. That is why for the 10 years it has been gone to the hands of private sector, so that the people can get more and more revenue from the people. The public of our country, those who are not paying the bills at the time, private sector will collect all those monetary amount from the people, and it will be again given back to the public sector. Next is expansion of production capacity. Definitely, if there will be private sector, or we can say capitalist system, production will automatically increase, because the intention or the motive of private sector is to maximize the profit, and for the profit maximization they will increase the production, they will use latest techniques of the production, new units and branches of the industries will be stabled, so that in a very short span they can increase the production rapidly. So these all were the benefits which were given to industrial sector reforms due to liberalization. Second sector which got more benefit is financial sector. Financial sector includes banking and non-banking financial institutions, stock exchange market, and foreign exchange market. These are the particular sectors or particular institutions from where the financial sector is circulated. Receipts and payments of the monetary term or the money is circulated in all these things, such as banking and non-banking institutions. In the banking sector, you know very well, the creation of money is done there. Creation of the currency, that is rupee in our country, is created there by RBI and is circulated by different commercial banks. Apart from this, if I talk about non-banking sectors, there are so many different financial institutions, those who are providing the finance to the public. to the government and to the private sectors also for the expansion of the business, of the industries, of the entrepreneur, and so many other things. So in India, financial sector is regulated and controlled by RBI in expanded form. It is Reserve Bank of India. It is also banker of the banks, or we can say banker to the government. This is the only apex institution which circulates all the informations, all the policies related to financial system. Now make a point here. Liberalization implied a substantial shift in the role of the RBI from a regulator to a facilitator of the financial sector. See students, it can be important question for you. So make a point here. What is the difference between regulator and facilitator? Again, I'm going to explain this thing. As a regulator, the RBI prior to the liberalization, means before liberalization, would itself fix interest rate structure for the commercial banks. Means RBI is the only apex institution which gives the instructions to the commercial banks related to any of the rate of interest, CRR, SLR, repo rate, reverse repo rate, and so many other things. So before liberalization, RBI was a regulator which used to regulate all the interest rates for all the commercial banks. But as a facilitator, after liberalization, means okay, the RBI would only facilitate the free play on the market forces and leave it to the commercial banks to decide their interest rate structure. But after the liberalization, what happened? Now RBI is only there to give the instructions to all the commercial banks so that they can easily fix or do the changes in the rate of interest structures by themselves only. Now, how was it helpful by the liberalization for the other financial institutions? Yes, it was very important step by the liberalization, by the process of liberalization for all the financial institutions, because now all the commercial banks were liberal to fix their rate of interest on their own. Means there was no any of the foundation by the RBI for the financial institutions to fix the rates according to RBI only. So this was the very big benefit to the financial sector reform. The next one is fiscal reform. Fiscal reform relates to revenue and expenditure of the government. Basically, the term fiscal refers to the taxation reforms of the country. So, tax reforms are the principal component of financial reform in the regard of fiscal reforms. So in India, taxes can be broadly classified into two parts. The first is direct tax and the another is indirect tax. Direct taxes are those taxes the burden of which cannot be shifted onto others. Means the tax has been levied to any of the person. He himself will pay the tax. He cannot shift the burden onto others. For example, income tax means, suppose if I am the income taxpayer, whatever the income I am getting from a profession, I will have to pay tax on my own. I cannot shift the burden to any another one. Why will I ask any another one to pay the tax from my side? So the burden cannot be shifted. The another one is indirect tax. What is indirect tax? Definitely the tax or those taxes the burden of which can be shifted onto others. For example, goods and service tax is the latest example. Custom duty we can say. So according to the time period, government has to do such kind of changes in the taxation system also, so that government can also get the revenue from the people. Basically, if government is not having good treasure or amount in its funds, so government has to increase the taxation rate so that when the people will give the taxes to the government, it will be the direct or revenue receipt for the government, and definitely government will do the expenditures from such kind of funds and all. Now, prior to liberalization, tax structure in the country has been highly complex. Fearing a heavy burden of taxation, people would often evade taxes. Now the tax structure has been simplified and moderated. As you know, before some years in our country, GST was introduced. It is a definitely so, simple taxation system which has included all the different taxes. One person has to pay it only one time when purchasing, selling of the goods, consumption, expenditure of the goods. So making rather than making complex system, government has made a very simple system. All the taxes are included in one tax only, that is GST, goods and service tax. Now the last but not the least sector which got the benefit from liberalization is external sector reforms, which includes foreign exchange reforms and foreign trade policy reforms. Now see, foreign exchange reforms were initiated in 1991 with the devaluation of the Indian rupee against foreign currencies. But what is devaluation of currency? So devaluation implies lowering the value of our currency in relation to other currencies of the world. It means when there is a lower value or the depreciated value of the Indian currency, which is rupee, in regard of the other countries' currency, is termed as de-evaluation or the depreciated value of the currency. So due to this sake, reason is that our strategies were not so clear. India was not having more funds in the country for the expenditures, due to which there was contraction of the supply of foreign exchange into the Indian economy. And the second point is foreign trade policy reforms. Definitely it was also much required for the reforms in the foreign trade policy, because India was in the habit of doing import substitution now. Means India was starting new industries in the country in spite of getting the goods from the other countries. It was also very harmful because we were now only having limited resources or limited options for the goods and services. Basically, if we are going to purchase the goods from other countries, we will get some new techniques, we will get some new varieties and all, but whatever the goods we were producing in the country, we were limited with those the things only. But now it was the time of liberalization. In the liberalization, tariffs were removed. Tariff, what is meant by tariff? This was a type of taxation which was imposed on imports and exports of the goods. Due to this fear only, there were so many people or so many entrepreneurs, those who were not sending their goods outside, or people were not getting the goods from the other countries because they had to pay higher rates of the taxes. But due to liberalization, these tariffs and quotas were removed and people again started enjoying the variety of goods from the other countries or imported products. So this was all about the new economic policy introduction and privatization. The next video will be followed by the introduction of privatization, globalization, WTO, merits and demerits of LPG. So this is all for today. Thank you for listening to me.